Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday episode of the Red Light Rant, presented by the Red Light Sports Network. Evan, I almost got caught talking to you pre-chat. I wasn't even paying attention to the studio time.
Yeah.
Almost didn't even get the iPhone set up. I was printing off a picture of Jerry Jones because today is going to be a great episode because we've got some Packer news going on, and then we're going to talk about Jerry Jones, and he needs to make a decision. Is he a GM or is he an owner? And I know you and I are going to give the perspective from somebody that's not a diehard Cowboys fan. Today's rant was actually recommended to us, and we both liked it. So we thought that we would give our opinion on Jerry Jones as a GM/owner and if he needs to make a decision one way or the other. So I'm excited about that portion of the rant today. But being the Packer fans we are, there is some huge news in free agency today. And so, Evan, I'm going to let you take over and let the fans know what happened today, and we'll give our 2 cents on the free agency the Packers just accomplished. Then we'll talk about Jerry Jones.
Yeah, it was quite the pleasant surprise. You know, I get out of bed, hop in the shower, and go back to my room and check Twitter on my phone, and I'm seeing people mentioning Peppers being in Green Bay. So I quickly get on my computer, go on Twitter, and lo and behold, the Packers have signed Julius Peppers to a 3-year contract worth $30 million, 7.5 guaranteed, and it looks like they're still going to have about $17 million in cap space with the Peppers signing, so they still have money out there to make other moves if they want to do it. So, you know, for those that have been banging their chest, begging for Thompson to do something, Thompson does what he does best. He lets the market settle. And, yeah, some of the names he's been talking to have signed other places because they got more money from other people. But after the dust settles, Julius Peppers is a Green Bay Packer. And now he's going to get to continue to harass the NFC North Division, but this time on Aaron Rodgers' side.
Now, I'm excited about this, Evan. You and I were talking before the show. You know, we got him at what I would consider fair market value. Only 7.5 guaranteed money, which really tells me, and you, like you were saying, really what that does is really only ties us up for about 1 year if we decide to go another route as the salaries increase over the 3-year deal. But like I was telling you, I could care less if he gets 1 sack. The reason is that he is going to open up everything for everyone else. You know, you were mentioning how much it's going to open up Raji now, being able to move him back to his natural position. Some people actually got mad at me on Twitter and said it's not Raji's fault, and I agree. It's not, but his production slipped because he was out of position. Getting Peppers allows us now to make sure Raji's in position, back to where he's comfortable, and to produce now. Peppers is going to give everyone else opportunities. It's going to take away, hopefully, the double team, triple teams away from Clay Matthews. And if they're still going to do that, it's going to leave Peppers single, one-on-one, on the outside, and the guy's still got juice in his tank, Evan. He's going to be able, like you said, to get at quarterbacks. So what are they going to do now? Double up Peppers, leave Matthews one-on-one? That would be awesome. Are they going to double both Matthews and Peppers and leave Raji one-on-one? And I talked about it. If they do that, not only then is Raji going to have a chance, it's going to open up the middle for the inside linebackers that we've talked about. So give your analysis of what Peppers is going to do to that defense, Evan.
Well, as you were saying, he's going to open things up. He's going to open things up for Clay Matthews. You're going to have to account for Julius Peppers. He's still extremely athletic. He still can get after the quarterback. He could still be disruptive. You're going to have to account for him. So you're going to have Clay Matthews opening things up for him. And can you imagine Peppers and Matthews rushing from the same side? Who do you block? You know, who do you double team there when you got the 2 guys coming from the same side? You're going to open things up for B.J. Raji in the middle because he's going to draw more one-on-one attention. And it's going to open things up for Mike Daniels to continue to be disruptive and even for Dayton Jones. And I see the base defense being Raji in the middle with Peppers at one defensive end spot and Dayton Jones at the other, and Mike Daniels continuing the role that he's been doing, and that's being that rush guy on passing situations. That's what I see the defensive line looking like next year, and it's going to be quite interesting to watch, especially with the people coming back from injuries like a Casey Hayward. That's going to greatly help this defense tremendously.
It's just the wow signing that you and I talked about. We didn't expect it. We had that little thought. Wouldn't it be great to have Peppers? Because it was just one of those things where we didn't think that would be the type of signing that Thompson would go after. I'm excited about it. Now I want training camp.
Can you imagine their cycle package now? That cycle package that Capers has kind of gone away from. Can you imagine that now? You have Jones, you have Daniels, you have Peppers, you have Matthews, you have Raji, and you don't know who's coming and from where.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is the signing that gives Capers the opportunity to do more things on defense. Because like you said, you have to account for Peppers. And that's great. And so the other defensive end that was out there, and we're like, man, it would be nice to have somebody of that quality, and we got Peppers. And like I said, not taking anything away from him. Love that. The other one, though, was the releasing of DeMarcus Ware by the Dallas Cowboys. And that got Cowboy fans, Evan, up in a roar. And, we contribute to a site called Your Daily Cowboys Football Fix. And if you go on that website, you will see the anger that Cowboy fans have with Jerry Jones, which leads us into the rant portion. The rant portion today. Does Jerry Jones need to make a decision, GM or owner? Because it's not working the way it is right now, Evan. And when I lead into this, I'm going to give you some information from the founder. Cowgirl Cass had written an article, and it was titled, S. Jones, for Stephen Jones, said he won't draft for need. The fans are doomed. And in this article, Evan, she had done some numbers, and I'm not going to go through all of the breakdown, but it was about draft picks and first-round picks and Pro Bowlers. At the end, the ultimate number that I looked at, in Parcells' tenure, when he was the one in the war room on draft day and helping make personnel decisions, they averaged 4.5 starters from the draft every year, our total, over the course of his time. Since then, since Parcells left, the draft has warranted an average of 1.7 starters per year. And since Parcells left, it has been Jerry Jones being the one that has been pulling the trigger on all of the personnel moves. And there's a steady decline. I am not going to say the Cowboy fans are wrong for being mad at Jerry Jones. He needs to get his hand out of the football operations. He needs to get a football man in the front office, and I'll say it this way, like Ted Thompson, that's going to be smart with his money, that's going to sign the right players for the system, and let the football guys do the football things, and let Jerry Jones be an owner. What do you think, Evan?
There's a stat that I had seen from ESPN.com, and Jerry Jones has officially held the GM title since 1997. And since then, his record as general manager is exactly 500. The same record that the Cowboys have finished the last 3 years in the regular season, 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. When Bill Parcells came in, Jones backed out of that position a little bit and let Parcells do his thing, and the team got better. He let Parcells get his guys that he wanted to coach, and the team saw improvement. And then when Parcells leaves, Jones goes back to same old Jerry, and now things are struggling again to finish anywhere above 500. And he bought the team back in maybe 25 years ago last month, he bought the team. And you look at the team back under Jimmy Johnson's leadership as the coach. When Jimmy Johnson was there, what did the Cowboys do? They win 2 Super Bowls, and many argue the Super Bowl that they won with Barry Switzer was actually Jimmy Johnson's team. You could have put a monkey in position as head coach of that year's team, and you would have won the Super Bowl. Since Jerry Jones had pretty much forced Jimmy Johnson out as head coach because he wasn't getting the attention that he thought he should get, the Cowboys have dropped dramatically. They've had coaches like Dave Campo for a couple years, Wade Phillips for a couple years, just to name a couple. Barry Switzer for a couple years, which he got them a Super Bowl win. But, hey, like I said, a lot of it goes to it was Jimmy Johnson's team, a team that Jimmy Johnson put together. Since Jerry Jones has took away that power, and like the stat says, since '97, since he officially became the GM, he has a 500 record. And what Jerry Jones, the owner, needs to do is fire his general manager. He needs to fire his general manager and bring in a guy that's strictly going to focus on football operations. Jerry Jones be the business guy, run the team up top, get money flowing in, market the team, get merchandise, selling, and let the GM come in there and hire a head coach who the GM knows he can work with and build the team from there. The way Jerry Jones is doing it, if they make the playoffs, it's going to be one and done. And, Milwaukee Bucks fans can, have great sympathy for what the Cowboys are going through right now. The Milwaukee Bucks have an owner that he refuses to rebuild the team. This year the Bucks are forced into rebuilding mode because they just fallen that much. But the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, he wants to get that 7th or 8th seed every year and get a couple home playoff games and get some revenue coming in that way. Jerry Jones, in my mind, has kind of started to do the same thing. He wants to win the division to get a home playoff game, and he's perfectly happy with that. Because why would you run off Rob Ryan, who didn't have the pieces that he needed as defensive coordinator because Jerry Jones, the GM, didn't get him the pieces that he needed? You run him off and bring in Monte Kiffin, completely different scheme change, and you keep Jason Garrett as head coach when the best that he does is finish 500. If you were focused on winning the Super Bowl, you would not tolerate your head coach finishing 500 3 years in a row. You would not tolerate that. And I think Jerry Jones is just, he's just happy of getting into the playoffs and getting a home playoff game to help pay for that stadium. The owner, Jerry Jones, has to get a GM that's going to do what needs to be done, and there's not going to be a complete tear down and rebuild because they got some nice components in that team with Sean Lee and Des Bryant and, just to name a couple. They got some nice pieces to build around, but they have to rebuild that team into the model that Jerry Jones wanted when he first became owner, and that was to compete for the Super Bowl. But I don't see Jerry Jones doing that, and I don't see him sitting through a rebuilding process. The same thing happened with Al Davis out in Oakland. He just kept throwing money at every problem he could, think of, thinking he was going to fix it, but he was throwing the money at the wrong pieces. So Jerry Jones giving that huge contract to Tony Romo, if you have a quarterback like Tony Romo, you have to throw the money at the defense to build the defense up if you want to make a deep playoff run. Tony Romo is not going to put you on his back and lead you to the Super Bowl. He's just not. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Peyton Manning. He's not Tom Brady. You need a solid defense around him to make that run. In my mind, Tony Romo is similar to a Joe Flacco. And yeah, Joe Flacco just won Super Bowl MVP not long ago, but he had a strong defense around him and some very strong pieces on offense and an outstanding offensive line in front of him. Until Jerry Jones decides that Jerry Jones, the general manager, is doing an awful job, the Cowboys are not going to win the Super Bowl, and it's just going to be very sad for Cowboys fans. Is they're going to continue to become angry and be mad and bitch and complain. But like I said, as long as Jerry Jones is the general manager, they're not winning the Super Bowl.
So you've heard it there, folks. Evan Witallison says Jerry Jones needs to fire himself. And you know what, Evan? I agree with you. Jerry Jones needs to kick his butt to the curb and get the football guy in there. Because you brought up a lot of good things, and I was taking notes as I always do when you rant and when you ramble, because otherwise I'll forget everything that you've said. The comparison to Al Davis hits it on the head, but totally different. Al Davis threw money, overpriced players, spent tons of money. Jerry Jones doing exactly the opposite. He's getting rid of the money. He doesn't want to spend the money. He got rid of
no.
He got rid of Ratliff. This year he got rid of DeMarcus Ware. And the thing is, he wanted him to take a pay cut, right, Evan? But he only got an $800,000 raise in Denver. And I think actually that's a good signing for Denver. I think Ware has a lot of juice left in the tank. That's a guy that can get to the quarterback too. I think what's happening, you had hit it on the head. Jerry Jones doesn't care about a damn Super Bowl. He could care less. That is not what's going on here. This is about Jerry Jones and his powerful ego and being the guy and making a lot of money. He's got to pay for that beautiful stadium they built. He's got to sell the merchandise. He needs to save the money. But you're right, they have a ton of pieces in place. The problem is, you get rid of DeMarcus Ware. You cut him because he didn't want to take a cut. Well, he didn't want to take a cut probably because he didn't want to play for you. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. I shared with you a website and an audio recording and an interview and an article that I'll share with the listeners in a little bit. But you cut DeMarcus Ware, and so now you would think with that cap room that you'd be able to go out and at least sign somebody. It doesn't have to necessarily be a Pro Bowl caliber guy. But how are you going to replace DeMarcus Ware? And so, Evan, Jerry Jones, the GM, went out and signed these two players to replace DeMarcus Ware. Terrell McClain and Jeremy Mincy. Which one of those is making the Pro Bowl this year, Evan?
Probably neither.
Which one are you going to start? Is he going to give you the production that DeMarcus Ware is going to give you?
Well, here's the thing. You can't replace a DeMarcus Ware production. You just can't. And, yeah, Jerry Jones isn't spending the money this year, but because of what he's done in years past, he's in salary cap hell right now. And part of the reason why they had to cut Julius Peppers, I just have a picture of him up right now because I'm looking through Facebook. And I probably shouldn't do that when I'm talking Cowboys because I'm just so excited about it. But you cut a guy like DeMarcus Ware because you had to. You had to cut him, and you told him you need to take a pay cut or else. And of course, if I'm DeMarcus Ware, I'm going to say, then cut me. You know, you signed me to this contract. You better honor it or cut me. And that's what DeMarcus Ware did. And now he has to, Jerry Jones has to go through salary cap hell for some contracts that he's done in the past, especially during that uncapped year.
Well, yeah.
During that uncapped year when he spent a lot of money, he's still being penalized from that.
No, he is. And they just lost Hatcher to the Redskins. I mean, over money, and some are saying maybe the Redskins overpaid for Hatcher, but you couldn't afford to re-sign your Pro Bowl defensive tackle. And last year they cut Ratliff. And the funny thing, and I have another article up on dcfanatic.com. And so for those Cowboy fans listening, if you're not ever on a Cowboy website, go to yourdailycowboysfootballfix.com, the one that Evan and I are part of, or DC Fanatic. But I'm going to bring this up. Jerry Jones always says the Ratliff was because of injury. Well, there's an article today, Evan, that shows you just the level of integrity that Jerry Jones has now around the league. And here, I'll read it right from DCFanatic.com. Cowboys accused of reneging on deal with Herring, agent pissed. And what it says is Herring had agreed to a 1-year deal Thursday, but both sides agreed to walk away, which keeps Herring a free agent. And then at the end, it goes down to about him never being hurt, but he passed a physical, but they think he may be an injury risk. It just goes to the whole Jerry Jones fiasco, because that was the reason they let Ratliff go. They said he was hurt, yeah, and all these things. But when you look at it, Jerry Jones just doesn't know what he's doing as a football guy. It goes back to the premise of your first comment about firing himself, Evan, because I'm going to ask you this as a Packer fan. You said he's been the GM since the title since 97, right?
Yeah.
And his record is 500. As a Packer fan, if you went through, well, it would be 16 years, a 500 ball with the same GM, how would you feel as a Packer fan? Had that been the situation in Green Bay? That record over 16 years. We've had that record, but we've made changes. If you had the same GM, what would you be yelling as a Packer fan?
Got to fire him. Got to get rid of the GM. Get the new coaching staff in there. Get a new GM in there. It's time to fix that. And, the Packers went through, a long stretch of, it's a little before my time. I'm going to, throw out, I guess, age myself a little bit there. Well, a little before my time. I was born in '83. But after Lombardi was done, the 70s and 80s, the Packers struggled to be, they struggled to be relevant in the NFL. And it took, Bob Harlan coming in there and saying enough is enough and completely shook things up. And then, Harlan brings in Ron Wolf, who brings in Mike Holmgren, who brings in Reggie White, who brings in Brett Favre, and the rest, as they say, is history. Packers went through something similar to, what Dallas is going through now, and, it took somebody with great vision and leadership in Ron Wolf to turn that around.
Exactly. It takes a football guy to do what every NFL team wants to do, and that's be competitive year in and year out and win Super Bowls. And when you're not competitive and you're not winning, you get fired. You get fired. So Jerry Jones, you need to fire yourself and get rid of your head coach. And that's going to lead me into the end as I look at our time running down here, Evan. There was a tweet by Wade Phillips about the stuff going on. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. But that led...
I did see that.
And so, I was reading an article actually by Al Beam, which is Cass's uncle, who you and I, or I've talked with. We're trying to get him on the show. His schedule is so busy. And he talks about Jason Garrett being the puppet. Well, there is a great article, or not an article, but a recording and interview on DCFanatic.com. And it's by Ben and Skin. And it reads this: Creighton and Holly give examples of Jason Garrett sabotaging Wade Phillips. So you've got two ex-receivers, Patrick Creighton, Jesse Holly, on air talking to Ben and Skin about how Jason Garrett used a vanilla playbook in the preseason, which many teams do, but it didn't change in week 1. It didn't change until week 9, Evan, after the Packers humiliated the Cowboys, which eventually led to Wade Phillips being fired. And then they go put 40 points up on the Redskins the following week because Jason Garrett then changed the playbook. And I didn't listen to the whole interview. I'm going to after we get off the show because it was very intriguing. I actually would recommend you go listen to it. The piece I saw was...
I will.
The piece that I heard was about Creighton and Holly saying the other team knew what plays we were running. And then Ben and Skid said, well, how do you go from a lackluster offense to putting up 40 points a following week? The game that Jason Garrett, his first game as head coach. It seems a little shady to me, Evan. It's a great interview. And my jaw was hitting the ground like, really? These are two former players talking about somebody sabotaging a team. And the question was asked by Ben and Skin, well, wouldn't he be accountable to the head coach as the coordinator? They said no. They had little to no communication. Jason Garrett communicated with the CEO, who was Jerry Jones. So what this shows me is just shows me a lot of dysfunction in Cowboy Nation. How could you do that? The way to get rid of all that, Evan, get a guy in that's going to do the football stuff. That has been the theme of our rant. If the Cowboys want to win, they need to have a football guy. I think we both agree on that as far as how do the Cowboys get to where they want to go. Because like you said, and I'm on the same page with you, I don't think Tony Romo is ever going to be an elite quarterback. But Tony Romo is a good quarterback that will be able to win games for you if you put the pieces around him, like you mentioned, in comparison to a Joe Flacco. Because if Joe Flacco, Evan, can be the Super Bowl MVP, I think Tony Romo is a better quarterback, and so he could be a Super Bowl MVP, but it's not going to happen if you have a crappy defense, which right now, that's what the Cowboys have. But they have a ton of pieces that need to be molded together with a different coaching staff, with a full GM, and somebody that can get the most out of the players that are already in Dallas and be able to bring in better players than a McLean or a Mincy. I'm not saying that they're not bad, that they're not terrible players, but they're not going to go out there and be those ones that push you into the playoffs and allow you to be more than one and done, like you said, Evan. So, when I look at it, I don't see the changes ever coming. I think Jerry Jones is just happy to collect his money and see his Cowboys make a push for the playoffs and get that playoff game, like you said, to pay for his fancy stadium and get his money. And then he'll go out and do whatever he wants to in the offseason because he's Jerry Jones and that's what he wants to do. So what else do you have about Jerry Jones, bud?
I think we've nailed it right on the head. It's just he needs to find himself as GM and get a football-minded
90 seconds.
Build that team. And, as much as it sucks sometimes not having that owner at the top, that other teams might have, but that's when it comes into handy with a team like Green Bay, because you don't have that. You have Mark Murphy, who's the team president, but he doesn't have complete total control. If Murphy's not working well as a team president, the board of directors can vote him out and bring somebody else in. So the way the Packers is structured, it's structured a way that you have the team president worrying about the business side, and then you have a general manager and a head coach worried about the football side. And it's structured that way, and that's how it should be. And more teams should, not saying that they should be, owned by the fans, because that can't happen in pro sports anymore. But, that's the model teams should be following. The owners should check their ego at the door and follow a similar model to Green Bay.
Yeah, and I told you in the pre-show, this reminds me of Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban is a great, great entrepreneur and businessman. And when he bought the Dallas Mavericks, that was him. Everybody knows him as the crazy fan, but he had his hand in the kettle. He's not a basketball guy. He may have the knowledge, but if you look, didn't they recently win the NBA championship? Because Mark Cuban let the basketball guys do what they had to do to get to the promised land. He was smart enough to understand, I'm the businessman. I will market myself. I will market my Dallas Mavericks, and I'll let somebody else do the coaching and run the team so I can win a championship. That's what Jerry Jones needs to do. Ultimate way, and like you said, it's not, the Packers way with the fans. They still have the structure. If you want to compare it, Mark Murphy is comparable to the owner. And you're right, he takes care of the business side, and then there's Ted Thompson, the GM, who's going to do the football operations. Those two need to work hand in hand to make sure that on the business side, things are going well, and on the football side, things are going well. There's just the disconnect with Jerry Jones and what he wants to accomplish in Dallas. And I think we're at the point now where Jerry Jones just wants the money. So, with that said, bud, we're going to have another great week on the Ramble next week. I know we're trying to set up, I had talked to you yesterday off air, we're going to try to set up some interviews next week with, trying to talk about women's professional softball, the commissioner of the league, just setting up a day for that to happen. And then I also had sent a request to the PA Rebellion. They just hired a new coach. I'm trying to get him on the air next week to talk about the PA Rebellion in their inaugural season in women's professional fast pitch. So it should be a good week. More NFL free agency coming up. But I'll let you give your last goodbyes to the fans on Saturday, Evan.
Well, thanks for the listeners for joining in and listening. Those that are taking the time, and just want to give another big thank you to a couple guests that we had last week, and Dave Radcliffe on Friday and Brady Papinga on Wednesday. And the last thing I'll leave people with regarding the Julius Peppers signing, as Brady Papinga said, they need internal competition, and if Julius Peppers doesn't bring internal competition to this Packer defense, I don't know what will.
I agree with you, buddy. I'm excited about it. Can't wait to do a little more research on it. And I don't think Ted Thompson is done. I think, we're going to see a couple more signings, not tier one like the Peppers, but I think he's going to bring some more guys in here too as we go through free agency. So there was that aggressive move we were waiting for. Cowboy fans that are listening in, Evan and I feel your pain. We feel that Mr. Jones needs to fire himself to get the Cowboys back on track. With that said, everyone, we will see you at the next red light. Have a great weekend. We'll get back at you Monday.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.